It's always my favorite part, the beginning, whenever
I know, they all pour in.
the space fill in, you're like, oh, cool, all these awesome people in one room.
And let's see. Pen. No, I don't want a pen.
I'm really excited for the future of Heartbeat and some of the cool things. I got to meet with this guy named Morley Robbins. He's one of the leading experts in mineralogy, and we're gonna do a live together. It's just brilliant, awesome person, understands copper. And like, so we just like bonded over it because he's in the film that I'm in.
Well, and see, and there's copper right there.
Exactly. Yeah, I showed him that. He loved it.
I bet. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Wow, we have 46 people in the house. We're so glad that you decided to show up today. We have Jason Estes, and we're going to have some fun as per usual.
Yep.
So thank you for showing up for the Heartbeat. We just love the people in this community, and it's growing and getting better. And I'm like starting to recognize names, faces. It's like awesome. I love it. So we're going to play with Jason, and we're going to ask, it's the 333, and I'm sure you saw it. So we're going to spring it on Jason. And right now it's about exploring Jason's 3 favorite concepts.
Ooh, 3 favorite concepts.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. There's like so many amazing concepts. I would say introduction versus force is probably one of the most important things, right? Because it's what sets void space technologies and its products aside from everyone else out there. I mean, like every day I can't go without like looking at my phone and seeing 5 or 6 text messages from people trying to share a new technology with me. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Nope. Force. And it's interesting in that sense, right? Because almost everything that's coming out, people are swearing that it's like quantum and they're using all the buzzwords and everything around it, but it's actually a forceful technology. And the thing that's so important about realizing the difference between introduction versus force is like when you introduce something, you're creating room for something to be learned. When you force something to learn something, you're creating trauma where there wasn't before. And what happens with bodies, and this is actually provable now, is that, like, for instance, when you use like the Healy or some technology that's a force-based technology, you're actually pulling resources from another location to go to that location. So there's all kinds of side effects that can occur with long-term use, which now we've finally had technologies out long enough that we're seeing the damage of long-term use.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Dr. Anthony about this, actually. Have a call with him in a little bit. But Dr. Anthony is like one of the leading doctors in the world, literally just got awarded #1 doctor in the world. He works for the White House. He's worked for the White House as the lead person in the White House for 4 terms now. And he's been working on the quantum technology side of things and understanding the tools and the technologies that are coming out because it's important, right? Like being at the leading edge and then like also being in the White House and needing to help bring these technologies forward, he's had to do a lot of research. So what he's learned is the same thing that I've always known. So it's kind of cool to run into somebody that's done all the studies and realize, hey, okay, everything that I felt about forceful technologies is actually scientifically provable that the long-term use of them is dangerous. And there's a reason that the long-term use of something is dangerous when you're using a force technology, right? So imagine that you're force feeding your body only one food for the rest of its life. How many of you think that you would survive? Well,
Nope.
You might survive, but how many medical conditions and other issues would have come up along the way?
Right.
A lot, right? Because
Right.
you need to have different codes and frequencies. When we think of the quantum field, we don't think of it like that. I think of the quantum field like an all-you-can-eat buffet versus a single dish. When you use certain technologies like the PMS mats is a perfect example of another forceful technology that has high-level consequences after long-term use, is these technologies are broadcasting a single frequency into your body constantly. You're not actually learning from them. You're being forced to change. And so what happens is you pull resources from other areas because you're basically causing your system to believe that what it's being worked on is the most important thing. And so now your system goes, oh, well, this is more important. So I'm going to pull stuff from my brain. I'm going to pull stuff from my heart. I'm going to pull stuff from my foot. When realistically, if you're working with the quantum field technology, you're not pulling anything from yourself. Your divine intelligence is connecting to the field, and the field is actually bringing those resources into who you are. So introduction versus force is probably, if not the most important thing to ever learn, it's the most important thing to learn other than translation. So my second favorite concept is translation. When you truly understand translation, the entire world as you know it changes. There are no more enemies in your world. There are only things that are misunderstood or mistranslated. And so that would be the most valuable and most powerful teaching that I have is translation, followed by introduction versus force. And then probably third, I can only get three.
Oh, you can do more. It's yours.
I mean, enemy versus ally is a powerful one too, but I think faith versus certainty would probably be my top three, because faith versus certainty was one of the most valuable lessons that I personally learned. Like translation was obviously the most valuable thing, because when I learned it, everything in my world changed. I stopped looking at things as enemies. I stopped looking at things as victims. I stopped looking at things as anything other than resources that needed to be translated. Every conversation, every person, every angle, everything became a code exchange that was either balanced or unbalanced. So translation brings in fair exchange, which is also one of the key components. But when you really understand that, then like it kind of is an all-encompassing thing. And then to navigate translation, introduction versus force, and then I'd probably say faith versus certainty, yeah. Because when you realize that certainty is the opposite of faith, and that when you're in certain space, you actually don't have room for God, then you actually miss out on the miracle or the wonder. One of the reasons why my nickname in Hollywood right now is actually Quantum Kid is because I play in the quantum and I have a childlike sense of wonder. So those things, I feel like without having faith, you can't really have that sense of wonder, because you go into this analytical mind of certainty. So I would say that's probably my third one. It's hard though, because enemies and allies is also critical, right? Like if I could spend 11 secrets to success, I could name tons of concepts, but those are definitely my three.
So the next one would be the enemies right underneath your third.
Yeah, because
Okay.
when you realize enemies versus allies, you remember that every choice is something that is just being refocused, because no matter how great you are today, tomorrow you're going to have hindsight, which is going to give you more opportunity to improve that. So when you start to realize that in every action you create enemies and allies, and that it's not a negative thing, it's not something that's like, it's just being able to be aware, then you have the ability to support your enemies so that they can become allies, and you have the ability to translate yourself up into higher dimensions through that experience.
Wow.
So I kind of cheated, guys. I did 4, but it is what it is.
Really? Is that cheating? Really? I don't think so. I don't think anybody else is going to think it's cheating either. I think it was just for 3 is kind of cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then if you're talking about the force, and you were talking about other modalities as well with the bed, is it possible you can't overdose on what's coming in, because it's you doing you at your highest level with God, right?
Are we referring to with the bed?
Yeah.
Yes, that's because you're not using your resources on the bed.
Right.
This is what's so important to understand the difference between the forceful technologies and the non-forceful technologies. Like the beamer, for instance, is actually sending a frequency in a very specific band into your body as a program that's telling your body to respond to it. That is a forceful thing. It's saying, hey, this is off, instead of letting your divine intelligence have resources and decide that this is off. You'll get quicker results, kind of like the difference between taking a pill and like actually learning the frequency, right? Like I can take something and immediately get results, but that's a chemical-based result. That's telling my body to let go of something. So that's a forceful technology. Realistically, and this is really cool if you learn neurochemistry, everything that you take is causing something to happen that your brain naturally is doing. So for instance, when people are having a great experience with MDMA, what they're actually experiencing is their body dumping all the serotonin in, right? And so that process of understanding that is, well, why can't I just tell my brain to let go of serotonin when I need to? Well, my divine intelligence regulates that. So all of these things kind of create that opportunity to realize that. That's one of the reasons why I'm really against certain technologies like the Healy or the Beamer and things like that, is because when you are doing that, and again, this is important to understand, like if you're critically wounded, you're on death's door, you're in an emergency situation, and the technology has the ability to give you support so that you can then eventually heal through that, that's a completely different experience. Like if I'm on death's door and God's like, hey, take Tylenol PM right now so that you can pass out and your body can like not have a fever of 108, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to say that that's wrong because it's giving me the time I need to repair. So I don't believe that modern medicine's got it wrong. I just think that we abuse modern medicine. It's the same thing with frequency-based technology. I think that we are currently in an abuse state because we're starting to work with this technology, but we don't really understand it and we don't want to understand it. We just want the quick fix. And quick fixes cost more than you can know in the future. But it's okay. And again, this is important for everyone listening. I'm not saying don't use these technologies. I'm saying don't confuse these technologies. Don't think that the PMF mat or that the Beamer or that the Healy or these technologies are actually quantum technologies, because they're not. They're scalar-based technologies that are actually informing you on what you should do, which again, not a bad thing if you're in a critical condition. But if you're in a healthy state, it's the same thing as the law of magnetism. When you work with magnets and you're beyond the range of magnets, they actually pull your health down instead of increase your health. And this has been proven for years now. If you lay on a magnetic bed and you're above the ratio of where the magnets can support you, they will naturally actually weaken you. And that's not helpful, right? It's the same technology with scalar. If you're in a higher range than the scalar band of 42 roughly, then what you're doing is you're actually lowering your range when you use this technology. It's the same thing with plant medicines. If you're in the higher range and you take plant medicines, you feel like it actually knocks you down instead of allows you to go up. These are that process of realizing the difference with introduction versus force.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like that could be a topic by itself.
Oh yeah.
Just walking in life and that particular topic would be huge.
Well, it's almost like I did a whole video on introduction versus force once.
Maybe. I would like to walk through a day and see what that looks like, though, to visit that, like how it shows up in our daily life, right?
It's the same thing with supplements, right? Like everything in our life, if we make it the master of us versus our own divine intelligence, we're actually disempowering ourselves by using it. I actually hold every one of my supplements and see whether it's for me first. If it's good for my body and my frequency, that means that there's a bioavailability to it that is going to actually teach me something. If it's not good for my body and my frequency, I won't take it. I just move it on, right? Because to learn things from the quantum level is great. Like all it's doing is helping me to translate better, which takes me back to the number one thing. And the reason why it's the number one thing is because let's say that I'm talking to you in Spanish, which I wouldn't because I don't know Spanish, but let's say that I was, but you don't know Spanish. You're going to feel the field, right? You're going to get the quantum value of my Spanish. So my inflections, my tones, like my facial expressions, all that stuff is going to be things that you're going to pick up on. That's like the quantum field. But the actual thing that you're going to process isn't going to be there. So the words you're not going to be able to pick up on in the same sense because you're in a space with no translation. I am speaking to you in a different language, right? This is how we understand the quantum. The quantum field is speaking to us in a different language until we understand what quantum actually is. When we truly understand the quantum, when we actually have the ability to translate light at its highest quotient, then what occurs is this completely new way of living. You start to realize that everything is a resource waiting to be translated back into light so that it can become bioavailable again, it can become something that you have the ability to process. That's really like the fancy word is bioavailability, but really it's just your ability to process the thing and the percentage to which you can process the thing, right? Like bioavailable vitamin C, for instance. All that's saying is that you have the ability to process it differently. This is something that's really cool about Morley that I'm really looking forward to having him on and having these kind of conversations with him is because he's figured out how to make a bioavailable copper. And it is life-changing. I've been taking it for a few days. Void Space is going to start to carry it. We already talked. It's going to be one of those products, like when you really understand the value of copper and things. And I'm not going to waste that conversation here today, guys, but know that it's coming soon. I'm actually going to be talking with him and hopefully we're scheduling it for early July. So that's going to be a great conversation because he's like one of the leading experts in mineralogy. Like he understands metallurgy, he understands all these things. And we are so similar on things, but I've never studied or read mineralogy. I don't have PhDs like he does and all the other things. So it's going to be really fun.
So how's that going to work real quick with your light state? So that's going to
So my
probably,
light M state actually has the M state of copper in it, right? So it actually uses that codex. It's copper and manganese. So the two things, like manganese is the most important element, and we're starting to talk about it because I believe manganese is the only element that actually touches the quantum field. Not translates, not supports, but actually touches it. And I think that's one of the reasons. It's also one of the most valuable resources in nature is manganese, because it actually helps all the plants and all the animals be able to translate that as well. So this is something that me and him are gonna have a deep dive over, is like the different minerals and like why and understandings, and also like why you age and everything else, because he's figured it out. Like we went back and forth, and like it was a brilliant conversation, and I can't wait to have even more brilliant conversations on here. That's kind of one of my favorite things in life.
wow. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But light should be here pretty soon. I think it was 6 weeks, and I think that was 4 weeks ago. So probably middle of July, maybe sooner. I don't know. I will get back to you guys on that. Or actually, I'll let Lynn get back to you guys on that, because you can look it up faster than I can.
All right. Now the
I know
fun
the
stuff.
shampoo and conditioner is arriving this week, though.
Oh, oh, ooh.
Yeah, the source oils and the shampoo and conditioner the palette should arrive, I think, Thursday or Friday. And then that means that we should have it up next week if everything goes well. So a lot of really cool new products coming. I'm really excited about that.
Wow. July's feeling good.
July is the month that I've really been looking forward to, because like we're in the cleanup phase, but we're also getting all the tools and the support we need to clean up. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. Versus like you're standing in the middle of the Amazon covered in mud, and there's like nothing to work with other than like nature itself. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna clean up by using more mud. Yay.
Oh, Lordy. All right. This is getting good. I'm like what's coming. And I'm sure everybody else will be too. So 3 favorite practices.
Ooh. So first practice is the great pause, obviously, which is I am committing to drink this apple juice. I am committing to set this apple juice down. When we bring the I am into a space, which is the personality met with the ascended master that actually creates the action, I am committing, then we're actually moving forward into the next stage, right? Because after victim, which we're in currently, the next phase is commitment. So we begin to actually understand things differently. So by doing this, we're actually coming into a space where the entity once was, bringing our divinity into form and changing the pattern. So that's probably my favorite practice of all time. And then my second favorite practice of all time would probably be what I call passive breath, which is very different than what the world traditionally uses, right?
Yep.
Not a fan of holotropic breathing or speed breathing, as I say, because I believe one of the most valuable things we can do is hold divinity into form and then slowly allow the expansion. So it's inhaling through your nose, out through the lips, but parched like this, and as slow as you possibly can go. It's called a passive breath. Those of you that have done coursework, you are very familiar with the passive breath, but the passive breath is probably the second most valuable practice I think that there is. And then this is, again, I'm going to go with 4, right? Because you can't really separate these two, but you can, I guess. So light of God, right? And remembering unity work. It's hard to say which one is more valuable because it really depends on where you are. And then I would also say clear camp, but there's like 20 best practice. I mean, come on, guys, like practice. There's so many good practices. There's just so many good practices. So remembering unity work, light of God, clear camp, time check work, programming, activation. I mean,
Okay, so let's separate it. So let's say let's do it in 2. So like somebody that's just stepping into this, they're just coming into wanting to do these type of things. And then people that have done it before, so which would look the same but different, right? So somebody new.
Pause 40 times a day would be my first recommendation to anyone that's new to life.
Which one? I'm sorry.
The great pause.
Okay.
40 times a day. It's easy. What you do is you can even do it all back to back. You just, I am committing to pick up this apple juice. I am committing to set this apple juice down. That's 2. You're already getting close, right? Step by step, but 40 times a day. Because what that does is it sets this new template in your system where divinity is actually more valuable than your entity perspective, or what we call the autopilot responsive life. Right now, that's going to be like your number one. Like, if you want to just change your life rapidly, 21 days of 40 great pauses a day, you will notice radical differences. Now you want to take that to the next stage, 5-minute passive breath daily. That's all it takes, just 5 minutes passive breath. Now, those are the two practices that I would give anyone that's starting out, because they're like the life-changing ones, right? Those are the ones that help you to regulate and also to slowly become divinity informed. And when those happen, naturally, everything else starts to occur. Now, as that occurs, you're going to start to notice that you have more light. And as that more light shines through, you're going to see that you have more wounds than you thought you did. You had some issues that came up when you were a child that you didn't remember. That's when light of God comes in as a friend. And remembering unity work comes in as a friend, right? So, but those two main practices would be the two that I would say, like, if you just had to do only two things for the rest of your life, those two would be the most valuable that I would offer anyone. After that, all the others become something that you work with to help those two things.
Yes, 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 and yes. All very valuable. And yeah, and definitely have made huge differences too, and obviously coursework and such. But yeah, I really like that. And the passive breath really is, when I came in, there were a lot of people talking about different types of breathing, but nothing ever really kind of felt like it aligned or anything. So for me, when I started doing coursework and did the passive breath, it took me a while to like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you know, kind of like you're whistling, but you're forcing it through. And I'm like, okay. But as I started getting into that rhythm, even for just 3 minutes, right? It's like, it's a whole different thing, and a little bit of lightheadedness because you're like feeling all that energy moving, definitely heating up big time. So that to me was a game changer, and stuff that I haven't, that type of breathing I haven't seen elsewhere. It doesn't mean it isn't, but I have not heard of that particular type of breath work.
Yeah, when I wrote it years ago, I hadn't heard of it either. I'd seen all these other ones, and they were all like hyperventilating and forcing the body to do things. And it kind of went into this whole process where I was like, why are we forcing everything? And then I thought, what would happen if I just relax and like allowed myself to just hold my breath and be in that space, and like what would occur? And then that's how I wrote passive breath. So I wanted to create more of a passive thing instead of a forceful thing.
Well, and I think too, it also, for me at least, helps keep me like in that particular moment, because, you know, when people do like a certain type of breathing in that normal breath, there's like this pattern, and your brain kind of tricks you in that. So you kind of get into this place where you're not really in the moment, but you're doing the breathing, where the passive breath keeps you in that moment. It's different.
Yeah, well, that's the whole purpose of it, is like to expand the moment versus to rush it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the old breathing styles were designed, very ancient breathing styles, right? Like Hatha yoga, for instance, right? The entire premise and purpose of it was built back in the second dimension. It's designed for a third dimension to even a little upper fourth dimension transit. It's kind of like Reiki. It was designed to bring us to the fourth dimension. There's nothing wrong when you're in a second dimension all the way to a third dimension, and even in the lower levels of the fourth dimension, force is part of the equation. You don't really get into introduction as a concept until like upper four. That's why so much technology and so many things out there are forceful. They're looking for a cause and effect right away. And doing holotropic breath, doing the hatha yoga, doing like all those kind of breaths where you're like creating a fast response, that's a forceful technology. Your body is forced to do something that's not natural for it right away. And again, I'm not saying that those things are not okay or good, right? Because like, if it's good for your body and your frequency, by all means, like work with it. But know that when you get up into the higher octaves, like it's nothing like that. I mean, they used to say that Buddha only breathed once every few years. Well, that's a concept that's really interesting to me that I've always kind of sat with, was like, well, if this being that had the capability to hold this space really did that, then why are we over breathing? And they also say that you only have a set amount of breaths before you die. So why speed that up? There's
Wait,
so many levels to the game of force that I've always wondered. And so I'm not saying that it's true that you only have a set amount of breaths before you die. I'm just saying that's what they say. It makes sense to me because, like you're translating stuff with each breath. But I actually learned that when I was younger, I didn't like to speed through things in the way that I did now, right? Like, or no, now I don't speed through things like I did when I was younger. I used to sprint. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get to the top of the mountain. And I get to the top of the mountain, and then I'd be at the bottom of the mountain again and be like, oh, what did I miss? And it's like, well, you were supposed to bring people with you. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Go ahead and just carry them, put them on my shoulders. I'm gonna get to the top of the mountain. And then everyone's back at the bottom of the mountain. It's like, no, you're not supposed to carry them with you. You're supposed to walk with them. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna tie leashes on them. Then I get to the top of the mountain. Oh, no, can't use leashes either. What? And so eventually I was like, I'm just gonna walk to the top of the mountain. And then people started like follow along with me. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of rewarding and cool. I'm having fun. And everybody's having fun too, right? And now we're almost to the top of the mountain again. But this time I don't think we're gonna end at the bottom mountain again. I think we're gonna get to go to another mountain, one that we've never been to before. All because we stopped rushing, right? This life teaches us to just keep running at full speed no matter what. We're constantly bombarded with things that are forcing us to make new decisions that we don't necessarily want to make. I remember when billboards first came out. It was a thing, like the giant ones, like you're driving your car, and those used to not be there. And then they were there. And then you were like, what? And at first there was actually more car wrecks. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but people didn't know how to process it. So they would actually stare at it instead of letting it subconsciously affect them. And so while they were staring at it, they would run into another car. And it led to a lot of wrecks and things originally when it was brought in, because it was wrecking us. It was taking us out of our patterns. Commercials at movie theaters, another example, right? There used to be like 2 of them. Now it's like 40 minutes of commercials before you get your movie. And you're like, what just happened? By that time, if you actually go early, then you get even more pre-programming to prepare you for your movie experience so that you have no value left when you do watch the movie. It's so fascinating what's happened. And then if you look at what they've done with our food, it's the same thing, right? They've taken out what once was called food, right? It was just called food. I remember I saw a bumper sticker, and it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, we really have done that. Because it said, in my day, we just called it food. And what it was acknowledging is there wasn't this organic food versus regular food. There was just food.
Yep.
Because we didn't have all of these things. And so as we moved forward, we began to take more and more stuff from the things until eventually we had supplements, because we weren't getting what we needed in food anymore, because they were taking it out of the food and putting it in capsules so that richer people could afford to have both.
Yeah.
And so what we live in is a world where we've separated everything into boxes and parts, so much so that we don't really see the wholeness of things anymore. And by the way, that had to happen. This is the part that a lot of people out there are like, oh, how dare they? Well, had to happen. Here's why. The 4th dimension is known as the analyzation dimension. It is the dimension where we analyze patterns as well as separate things to understand them. So to arrive at the 4th dimension, we had to pretty much separate and box everything so that now we're here. But here's the cool thing about the 5th dimension. We throw out the boxes now, bring everything together as one, and get to experience wholeness. So the problem with that is the paradigm shift that has to occur between 4 and 5. And that's the letting go of the analyzation and the principles of it. And that's kind of where we're at now. And that's one of the reasons why introduction versus force is so different. Is introduction is upper 4 plus, right? So it's 4D plus in the higher space and very much key component to 5th dimension. So as we begin to realize this, we start to realize that a lot of these forceful ways of advertising, these forceful ways of getting people to do what we want them to do, right? But that already is a dangerous statement, but it's the truth. Getting people to do what we want them to do, programming them to go a certain way, having them follow a certain narrative, for instance. That is the old way. The new way is what I call discovery. It's one of the reasons why we consider void space technologies and the products of the dimensional company is because it's all about discovery. We don't want you to buy our stuff. We want you to discover our stuff and see whether or not it makes sense. And that's an introduction versus force model, specifically around advertising and everything else. I'd rather just educate people and have them make their own decisions. Provide these lives, have great conversations with people, bring concepts you didn't know existed forward so you can make different choices if you want to. That's the cool part about that process. And it all goes back to that mistranslation. Whenever you push force on something, you naturally create a mistranslation every single time. And there's nothing you can do about that, because force is like taking an imprint and sticking it in space and time, regardless of whether it's a technology, a person, place, thing, or advertisement for that matter. You're imprinting something in force. Introduction, you have your hand open and people take what they need out of it. And that's where the quantum field is actually found, is in a space where it's already open to you. The difference between you and me is that I have different types of translation than you do. And that means that your body is going to require different things than my body is going to require, because you have to figure out the misunderstandings in your own field that I also have misunderstandings, but they're not going to be the same ones. That's why the products are designed the way that they're designed. That's why everything is designed the way that it's designed, is so that you can actually work on translating your field so that you can touch the quantum perfectly, right? Because the more that you actually allow the quantum field to go through you instead of push against you, the faster you'll heal, the less you'll age, and the stronger you will feel naturally. Those are 3 things that I promise you. And those all come from tapping into the quantum field properly. The quantum field is getting stronger every day on this planet. Just for the record, it's infinitely strong. It's gonna, but in physical form, the Earth is also translating. And so what's happening is the field is becoming stronger and stronger on Earth, meaning that what the Earth is able to emanate for us is stronger every day, not less, which means that our bodies are requiring more translation than normal. Here's the thing that people don't tell you. To translate requires resources. So whether it's magnesium or copper, those are usually like your major ones. Palladium is another one, but don't take it physically. Physical palladium is not good for you. Bioavailable palladium is a different thing. Very complicated. I've never seen it, so I had to create cloud. But that process of understanding that there are dimensional resources that you're burning to complete your translations of things is the most valuable thing you're ever going to figure out for yourself. And then figuring out what those resources are, right? Because again, what my resources are aren't going to be yours. You have different misunderstandings than me, but we all have misunderstandings. Otherwise we wouldn't be physical. You'd be able to see right through me, literally. Because the light spectrum that is translated becomes dense. So if there were no misunderstandings in the light spectrum, then we would be holographic, which we are technically at a spiritual level, but our physical form is the manifestation of misunderstandings.
So we're going to get a little bit more transparent as we move along.
Well, when you get up into like the upper 5th dimensional perspective, you are less dense. So it's not that you're going to be more transparent at first, but the spectrum around you will definitely become stronger. And also you will have less pain in your body and no thoughts. Remember, like what I talk about is cloud-like, right? The space where no pain and no thoughts and absolute presence. So it almost is like you can feel the wind blow through you. That is the form of transparency or holographic space that I talk about with that. Like being able to not see me. When I get into the upper 5th dimension, like if I've meditated for a while and I go into a restaurant, the average person can't see me. That's the weirdest thing ever. And it's also really annoying because you're like,
pizza.
And then they don't even know what's going on. And then eventually you're there with your friend and you're like, hey, I am probably meditated too high. Can you go and tap that person on the shoulder? And then they go tap the person on the shoulder and the person jumps. And they're like, oh, I didn't see you. And they're like, yeah, I know. It's that process, right? That's also in a holographic space where you're at a higher octave. So you're at a different level of light and they can't translate you, so they can't see you. This is the power of the future where we're headed, this space and time. Now, the good news is we're going to be moving in a direction and the other group isn't at first. And that's normal. Anytime that you have people that are able to transit higher, they go and prepare the way. Even the Bible talks about this. The first group will go and prepare the way and then they will join together kind of thing, right? So we're on the cutting edge. We're the ones that are sitting there and actually working on translating and preparing ourselves and holding more light quotient as we are, right? That doesn't mean that we're greater than the other group. That just means we have different missions. It's really important that we understand that, because the sense of entitlement can occur, which will knock you straight down into the lower games very fast. because then you'll feel entitled to certain things. And because of that, you'll think that you deserve things that you haven't earned. And it'll lead to this really interesting problem, which is a mistranslation.
Yeah, I'm grateful for those gifts. They feel like crap, and you can feel like you got kicked in the gut, but I'd rather get kicked in the gut and have the opportunity than get dragged places, because I let that happen for like a day and a half, and then I'm like, I hadn't been there in a long time, like tapping out. Nope, we're figuring this out, letting go. I am not being dragged anymore. It's very interesting, all the things that are coming up. And it's interesting that, because I get what's going on in the world on the outside, but what's happening in my world is the stuff that's coming up. And it's attached to family, which is that last big hoorah that you kind of hold on to, right? So it's been an interesting journey, but I am very grateful for that, because as I do and I figure out what's really not mine that I believed was, helps me to get lighter and lighter. Plus with all the stuff with the M states and the bed and coursework and all that. I mean, it's all part of this journey that I'm grateful for and made a difference. So all these things you're talking about is all part of that journey.
Yeah.
So translation, I'm waiting for light to come in, because I know there's moments in my day I can feel that golden light coming in, the central light coming in my heart and then going through my body. And if I have pain, it goes away. Like seriously, goes away. It's like, but I can't maintain that space.
Not yet.
Right.
But that's the future. I honestly think in the next 5 years, everyone that's still choosing to be on Earth is going to be in that state of the upper 4 to the point where cloud light becomes more of like a daily sensation for them. Because the radical transformation, like you guys can't even imagine over the next few years. Like here's just a little snippet, right? So we're opening Quantum Mall in the spot LA. We'll have finally signed the contract, I think, probably later this week. But it's official. We're going to be opening a Quantum Mall in the spot in LA. From there, we're franchising to 117 locations over the next 3 years. And then from those locations, we're franchising to 500 locations over the next 10 years. So the coolest part about Quantum Wellness Spa is that it's part of the Quantum Freedom Network, which means that you don't have to be wealthy to be able to go, but you have to be willing to donate either your time or your money to go, right? So like if you're going to work in a nonprofit or volunteer, then you can, if it's an approved nonprofit on our list, which we're going to work on that pretty soon, you'll be able to actually go to the Quantum Wellness Spa in exchange for the hours you donated to the nonprofit. So we're creating a model that works for 100% of humanity, creates an opportunity for everybody to choose which way they want to play. And this is just the beginning of that collaborative model. We're planning to do this with food. We're planning to do this with all across the board, right? So that everyone will have access to everything. Because the number one thing that I don't like is that we have this lack of access. That depending on which group you're in the world, you have more access than the other. That doesn't make sense to me. Everyone should have equal access, but they should also have equal opportunity. You know that changes when it comes to whether you apply yourself or not. I'm not saying that you should get handouts. I believe in merit-based. Like a meritocracy is the way that I understand the world. But that's just me. This process of understanding what's possible. So let's talk about that for a second. What happens when one person actually learns something? They let go of trauma and they're part of something called the collective conscious, right? So like what happens when that person does a bed session is that they learn something. But now not only do they learn something, but everyone up here learns something too, which is part of you. So every session done on a bed is actually helping the world move closer. I'm launching 2 initiatives, Beds for Vets and Beds for Kids. Beds for Vets is to help veterans because it's a cause that I'm very passionate about. Again, I was a veteran, so it's one of those things, right? And then Beds for Kids is to help kids that have been child trafficked and have gone through some very abusive experiences. And I've already started to find some nonprofits that I want to work with this, because those are the 2 densest categories in the world right now. Veterans with the war trauma and kids with that other trauma and the abuse, right? Because those things. And so the ability to start to build those models out so that we can give these beds to these nonprofits to start helping clean up that density is part of that future vision. It's a very big space. But also every one of our quantum wellness spas gives over 10% of its profits to local charities to create quantum cities, because it starts to help the trauma of the city, because a grid is a grid. So if you're in a city and you do a bed session, you're helping that whole city's grid. But we also go and work with nonprofits to help them to do what they're doing, their good service and their work in the city. So each city that we actually have one in is actually working with the local nonprofits to uplift the physical, while the quantum spa uplifts the metaphysical, creating an elevator to heaven every location.
That's
This is a model that I
amazing.
don't think many people would ever have done or thought of. So this is just the beginning of the work that I've been working on behind the scenes. Like, you guys saw that I went on 3 adventures. Those adventures were very big deals. Like, I was at a red carpet. Void Space actually got launched for its first time ever at a red carpet. Our logo was on the back. Hopefully we'll get some photos up pretty soon. It's a little bit slower because when I'm in the mode, I'm in the mode. I don't take photos. I'm really bad at that. And then the other one was, so that was the red carpet, the filming. So I'm in another documentary. The documentary is kind of like on how I created this technology and my childhood. It's going to be a docu-series on Amazon, so that's going to be really cool. That's going to launch in January as well. And then the other one was Chicago for a knighting ceremony, where I actually got to meet all of these amazing people that are changing the world and really wanting to make a difference. So the adventures that I go on these days are pretty ridiculous, at least. But as I go to these adventures, what happens is the goal that I have, which is heaven on earth, actually happens sooner, because everybody wants to collaborate now. Literally everyone, from the president's physician all the way to people in different countries, like entire countries are wanting to collaborate to create solutions instead of management. We've arrived in a world where the governments are actually trying to do good with us again. Not all of them, but most of them. Surprisingly enough, right? Like, we're working together where governance is actually working with us, not against us. It's freaking weird. For anyone out there that knows what I'm talking about, it's weird. I'm still having to rewire my brain, because for so long they kept shutting me down, and now it's like, oh, hey, actually we're ready to work together.
Yeah, that's amazing. And particularly, I love the idea. I love all of it, actually, but with the kids in the bed, and also I love the idea of people on the bed that can experience it. But I also love the fact that you're not just doing it for free, because you're giving them value when they have to donate time. I mean, they're feeling valuable as a person, which I think is really important. And I've learned that from years of, you can give things free, but then people don't. I mean, I've done that, give gift certificates for a good cause, and someone, puts money towards it for the event, but then somebody comes in and uses a gift certificate and they're like, oh, well, that's okay, bye, but someone else that's really valuing it because they're valued, it's a totally different experience on the bed.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
it's
I
the
learned
color,
that.
right? Like, they're paying to tap into the quantum field by using time, which is their greatest resource, so they actually care about it. But also their time that they're exchanging is helping move the world closer to heaven.
Yes.
So
Right.
it's like this perfect impact-based approach to helping the world learn a better world, a better system. And I hope that more people come in to collaborate and support, but it's coming together really well.
That's beautiful. All of it, I just, and the valuing of people and letting people value themselves and know the value that they are. It's just what a shift that's been, just that thinking in itself, right? From what
Yeah.
we've had. And that's what got us where we're at now, is not valuing people. So, yeah, this is a beautiful thing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens with all that. That's and for kids and things. Kids are amazing on the bed. But everything. I'm so happy you're getting it out to all these different cities, all these spas. People constantly asking me, the Healy, like you were talking about, all those things, and I pretty much say the same things. I don't badmouth them, but I do tell them it's a totally different type of technology. And, it's not just a sliver of something, it's you doing you at your highest level with God. So you get exactly what you need. And they're it breaks people's brains when you say that, because to them that sounds woo-woo, but they don't understand how powerful that really, really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's individually you. So
It's also slower, which is the other thing they don't necessarily appreciate, right? Like,
right.
if I'm bombarding your system with a set program and forcing it to do something, you're going to get results much faster, but they're not going to be lasting results.
Right.
One thing that I really love on the innocence track of the bed, the stories I get are almost always people like remembering parts of their childhood or things that they didn't know that they were holding on to around that adolescent age. And they're like, I didn't realize that I didn't know I could have memories come up like that. And it's like, yeah, because you're unwinding. You're actually letting go of the story that's causing the problem instead of just forcing your body to change the problem. Because here's the thing about any type of advanced energy, and this is important. This is one of the reasons why I don't believe in energy healers as a healthy thing now, is because when you get to this point where somebody else is healing you, you're not learning the lesson. So what occurs is I heal your shoulder. Well, I didn't heal the problem with your shoulder. I healed the side effect of the problem with your shoulder. So now you don't have pain in your shoulder. Congratulations, but it's going to come back with a vengeance because the problem didn't get solved. Now, if you work together with like bringing energetic elements, but also counseling and support to unravel, it's a whole different thing. But the average person doesn't do that. They have you lay on a table and then they just send energy to heal your body. Well, that's different than natural energy work, because natural energy work is holding space for a person so that they can heal. And a lot of healers these days heal you, and they'll even say that. And it's just like, when they tell you that they're healing you, then that's the red flag that you need to find somebody else that isn't going to heal you, but is going to hold space for you to heal. Because when you hold space for somebody to heal, when they heal, it's true. It might take 3-4 months instead of one session, but it's still their healing. They accomplished it. And then you can say, hey, congratulations, you did that. And then that allows them to realize, wait, I can heal things. The most powerful thing you're ever going to do for another person is help them realize that they're powerful.
Exactly. And well said. Simple but true.
Yeah, everybody's just as powerful as you, but they don't know it. And that's why they delegate their power to you. And if you really want to help them, you take that power and you give it back to them and show it to them at the same time. You go, hey, so this power you gave me right here, I don't know if you realize, but like, see this label right here? It says your name on it right there. So that's not my power. So I'm going to hand this back to you, and then I'm going to help you realize what to do with it. And what occurs is that reframes their brain to think that they don't have to give their power away to heal. And two, they realize that they actually have power. And that's a very powerful way to support people in the world moving forward, because empowered people can help other people be empowered by simply showing them their power, not showing them your power, showing them their power.
I provide you the resources, you step in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
I
do.
love about your clinic and the stuff that I've read about it so far.
Thank you. I love what I do. I'm blessed and I know it. All right. So you're going to love this question. God. 3 favorite products for living in harmony with the quantum field.
This is hard when you narrow it down to 3.
Well, hey, you're the boss. Do as many as you want.
I think this is one of the best drinks ever made for that, just to be honest. But so the awesome drink of amazingness is quite awesome. And it's a drink with amazingness. Like, what else do you need, right? The electrolytes, the stability, the biocells, salts, the plasma, as well as like the cloud, all those resources really help to create a clean translation of almost all the bioavailable things that you need. It's one of the reasons why I love this drink so much. So I'm going to put that up on the list as one of my favorites. The other thing is like just realizing you, right? So I would say probably the greatest tool ever. I'm going to reframe, okay? Best product ever is your body, hands down. Doesn't matter how broken it is, doesn't matter anything else. The moment you realize that your body is a product to your soul and that you guys are working together to accomplish something, everything changes. Now, you want to give it the resources it needs to strengthen that connection. And that's where Awesome Drink of Amazingness comes in. My other like new favorite right now is probably the Reset, which you guys don't know about yet because light's not out, but it's light, oxygen, and silence in water. So good. You drink it and like 8-9 minutes later, you're just like, oh, my central nervous system is reset. I feel incredible. Thank you. Because you're changing the way that you translate in your body by introducing the oxygen that it needs to understand itself, the light that it needs to translate properly, and then the silence, which is like a M state of gold, right? So it's actually helping to superconduct that light in your body, but it's actually going into like your body's oxygen. And so it's really just, it's a very uplifting beverage. That one will be coming out very soon because again, light will be out hopefully in July, probably sooner to be honest, but I don't know when in July, but it will. And then I'll be posting that video showing you that drink because it's a great drink. I'm going to also throw out there GB6. It's a new product by Anna Vitae, and I'm going to be doing that video very soon for spiritual bartending because I finally figured out exactly what to do. It also uses cloud, right? So, but GB6 is this great thing that helps to balance out the gut-brain connection. And I've been really noticing major differences in it. My body feels a lot more stable and more amazing. So huge fan of that one. There's too many products to count, man. Like obviously my TV is going to be another one of those products, right? Because like I love to watch TV and movies. So much good content out there these days to watch. Actually, that question's hard because that list is like 100 things off the top of my head.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I do
All
have
right.
one specific question
This
about
is
the
called
drink.
light
though.
water. This is
Wait,
the newest
somebody-
one as well. It's Willard water first with a little bit of light, and then you fill it up with water and you drink it, and it's like really stabilizing my internal brain, so like my gut brain, right? But it's helping it to translate light differently, so it's like more stabilizing. It's also been really helping. Dr. Morley's copper, the bioavailable copper that he created, it's called Recuperate, and it's phenomenal stuff. I mean, dude, I could go for hours here. You gotta be careful with this one. All the M states, source seeds, like I mean, like let's throw a shout out to that, right? Sourced oils, the shampoo and conditioner. Oh, can't even begin to like the shampoo and wow. Okay, like just yeah, I'll ramble and name every product on Void Space and pretty much every product that I represent because I believe in them. That's why I represent them.
Well, wait, stop 1 sec. Your new drink, somebody's asking who's pregnant. Is that okay if she's pregnant and
I
does
can't answer that question. I have
Thank
to
you.
delegate it to a medical authority as I am not one.
See, thank you. I say, listen to your body, it knows.
I can't even say that. As
I
the
am, and I'm not a
representative for
doctor.
voice-based technologies, all I can say is that if it is something that you're unsure of, I recommend that you go see a medical practitioner.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Okay, continue.
I mean, honestly, like everything out there is just getting better. There's more and more amazing things coming every day. I'm meeting more and more amazing people like Dr. Morley. I cannot wait to like collaborate and work with him and create even greater things, right? I just found out about this other bed out there called the Vibe bed, which is an incredible bed with my bed. And that's important because you don't want to do the Vibe bed by itself because it uses a lot of resources, but it's very strong in the way that it like vibrates and uses vibroacoustics to help your body to see things. It's just, it costs so much. So when you get off the bed, you're like really drained. But if you get off the bed onto the quantum energy wellness bed, you recoup it. So I'm actually thinking about getting them for the spas so that they can be like a treatment, like you do 20 minutes on this one and 40 minutes on this one or something like that. Kind of a cool little system. But that's the thing that I'm looking forward to with all of the fun things that are coming is all the collaborations, guys. Like my products are not the best products in the world. They're just products. Other people's products are not the best products in the world. They're just products. I think of products as choices. And if I can find a way to build protocols with all the different choices that help more people, it's amazing. We're working with Patrick Merkel. He's an incredible person when it comes to like diagnoses and all these things about modern medicine. Putting that together with Zach Bush and then like Dr. Morley and then Anthony and all of these people coming together, we're starting to create some pretty amazing protocols that are going to help people get into health and healing on the next stage, which we call quantum wellness, right? The next level of wellness.
Wow.
But it's
So
like my life was to find products that I could keep myself alive long enough at the higher octaves, because this is the people, like, this is the thing people don't get. I actually talk about this in my documentary, but when you are driving your car, right? Like, how many of you own a car? How many of you have to get your oil changed at least once every year? That's the thing, right?
yeah,
How many of you have seen NASCAR and see how many times they have to have their oil changed and their tires changed in the course of a very short amount of time? What's the difference between their car and your car? The
running.
answer is they're moving at a faster pace.
Yep.
So it requires more upkeep. As we move faster in a quantum perspective, we actually burn more resources. And until we can actually translate the quantum field properly, we don't get those resources back naturally. This is where the struggle comes in. Our food content doesn't have the minerals and nutrients we need anymore. I mean, there are some that do, like my farm is finally starting to produce products, which is great, but though we're not producing in mass yet, like we're not bottling it, we're not like, so like the average person doesn't have access to that kind of stuff, right? So what occurs is you get this struggle where we burn out and then we're exhausted. How many of you have been feeling more and more fatigued since the masterline integration? That's mostly because you don't have enough copper. So copper actually communicates and runs all of your systems in your body. Iron is the number one reason that you age. Aging is like rust. It's an oxidative stress that is caused from the body, right? So copper actually communicates to iron. Copper communicates to everything. Magnesium is the thing that it uses to actually get things accomplished. So you burn out of magnesium and copper. Do you know the other thing you burn out of more than anything else? Vitamin D. So when you work with multidimensional energies, you're burning copper, magnesium, and vitamin D, and palladium, if you get into the high octaves. So where do we get those things? Vitamin D is the sun. How many of you get to go out into the sun all the time that you want? Very few of us, right? We do get to go out though, but not all the time we want. We would spend more time out if we had nothing else to do in life. How many of us would spend more time at the beach or somewhere else, right? Be real, like you would, because it's incredible. What happens if you spend time at the beach? You naturally heal. You have negative ions, you have the salt, you have the connection to the ocean, you have all the bioavailable minerals and nutrients in the ocean. But what's really cool about the ocean is that it helps you to translate things. So when you're in that water, the ocean is translating light. And guess what? The ocean's a specialty at translating light. Why do you think it works the way that it does? It's an amazing translator. Bathtubs work as well. Like you put M states in the bathtub, pretty amazing stuff that can occur, because then you're bathing in those frequencies and light can translate, because the quantum field is always available to you. Every single person here, quantum field is right 1 inch away from you right now. That's it. And that inch is all of your misunderstandings. So little tiny bits of it drip in, and then more misunderstandings occur usually. Then less drips in until eventually you resolve some misunderstandings. Then more drips in, then less, then more, then less, then more, then less. Right? That's our life. That's what we go through. Because as we live longer, we have more experience. As we have more experience, we have misunderstandings that come from the experience. Because what you could do when you were a child, this is actually proven. Babies process mostly through light as a child. It's one of the reasons why they don't digest things in the same way, is because they're digesting from the quantum field in. At 8 years old, that flips. And they start to digest from inside to the quantum field. And then by the age of 14, when the hormones and everything kick in, their system is actually more misunderstood than it was. And so they stop really connecting to the quantum field. Now, that's not every child. Obviously, if there was the proper education, that would never happen. We would have a completely different system, but that's how it has been. So the only difference with the youth and the things that you felt then was that you weren't mistranslating. You didn't have fear, you didn't have insecurities, you didn't have the things that you have now, because you have experience in the world. But that fear, all those things that you have, this is something that Morley says that's just blew my mind. All right, you ready? Fear is 2 signs put together, right? Fe, which is iron, for anyone that doesn't know, and Ar, right? Ar is rust. So when iron rusts, you get fear. It's fascinating. Like I'm really looking forward to you guys getting to know him. He's brilliant, brilliant stuff. He has a book called Cure, and it's all about understanding copper and stuff. I won't read it, but I did get to talk to him on it, which was really cool. Highly recommend it for people. The book feels amazing.
Wow, just that the fear iron
Right?
that's huge. Like, I mean, I'll be thinking about that for a while because I can literally feel that in every cell of my body when you say that like that's really big.
Yeah, we're gonna go deep on it. So just be prepared, guys, because we're gonna go back and forth on like copper and iron and the misunderstandings of the world and where iron comes from and all this. So that it's gonna be a brilliant conversation. I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Wow. Yeah, that feels big. I'm excited for that. Movies, suggestions? I know we're doing a manifesting discussion on Friday, if you so choose to participate. I know you're super busy. We're doing it at 2.
I will see if I can make it. I mean, that's a great conversation to
Yep.
have. Like, I'm glad that somebody I was planning on doing it, but I'm glad that somebody's doing it.
Well, you can
So
take it over.
Manifest, hands down, huge fan of Manifest. I really love Cobra Kai. New season's coming out pretty soon. That one's going to be really great for anyone that watched Karate Kid as a kid. Cobra Kai is just kind of like a nostalgia thing, but there's also a lot of good codes woven into it. So that one's fun. I just watched this one called Social Currency on Netflix, which was actually really good, surprisingly. I wasn't expecting it to be good, but Social Currency is basically all these influencers from India come together into a house and they learn what it's like to live in the real world. And there's so many codes in that process of realizing it, like I absolutely loved that one as well. Shadow and Bone was an incredible one. Guardians of the Galaxy, all of them, literally
Yep.
all of them, incredible. But this last one was super good. If you know anything about the Anunnaki or the true origin of Earth and the master races and things like this one goes pretty deep into that kind of stuff, which is kind of fun. There's so many good movies and TV shows out these days.
Yep, I agree. I don't know what's coming. But yeah, I definitely know that. And I am looking forward to the manifest conversation because there's just so much in that on so many different levels. And even their acting changed as they got lighter and started stepping into learning about what it was. I mean, you could see the acting. I mean, and it's like, because the writers aren't giving them all this information. They don't know where it's going to end. So it was just on that level, something as simple as that of the acting changing and growing and the depth that came as they went through it was amazing.
That's one of my favorite things to watch is the progression of the actors and actresses. Like I don't read social media on them, but seeing how they like handle their roles and like what they can actually hold space for is just it's always fascinating watching long seasons of things.
Yep.
If you haven't seen Kyle XY or Being Erica, hands down, 2 of my favorite shows of all time. Just absolutely incredible. Kyle XY is a good rewatch now that we're in the master line because the codes and like just the simple things that will make you go, oh, because the way that he looks at the world is very different. Like we're programmed from birth to look at the world a certain way. And that show breaks you out of that, which is a really valuable thing. And Being Erica is just, well, I mean, it's just Being Erica. Like that's one of those shows where you're just like, if you haven't seen Being Erica, that's probably the most important thing you should do in your life. Just go see that show. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, I still hope that there's a new season of it that comes out, Good Omens season 2 is about to start, which is crazy because it was canceled in my timeline and I was really bummed about it. I remember when it came out, I was like, whoa, this was incredible. And then I saw that it was canceled. And I was like, just like Heaven Probably Saves the World. Why is it? And then I just saw that it's actually back on and it's filmed and comes out was it tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow that it comes out. That one's going to be incredible. Good Omens was phenomenal. That first few minutes of Good Omens, anyone that hasn't seen it on Amazon, watch that first few minutes of Good Omens where it explains the universe. It will blow your mind. So perfect. I love that they use ineffable in that world because it's one of my favorite words that almost no one knows. and they don't know it because they can't know it. And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Oh yeah, that show, I was hooked, yeah, for that first 2 minutes. I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching, but I'm all in. Yeah, that
You
was
know that
pretty.
you've made it when there are amazing video games, movies, and TV shows that are constantly coming out, and you're starting to see things a lot clearer on the world stage as well. Like, it's so obvious to anyone that's paying attention that the old world is over and we're in this new world and things are coming together. Technology's coming out, so many amazing things. I saw somebody who knows Dr. Vibe, Mr. Schwartz is incredible. So I'm excited to work with him and collaborate with him. He's in Colorado right now, but so many amazing technologies, so many amazing people. And like I said before, governments, literal governments are asking for aid now. That's something I didn't think I would see in my lifetime. And here we are. So while the media will make you think you're in hell, you're actually in heaven, and things are drastically changing behind the scenes, so that will be very obvious by the end of this year.
Wow. Talk about Christmas, what it really is and what it's going to look like.
Oh man, that's going to be a crazy end of the year for sure. Things are just getting better every day, you know? And then like in January, the film comes out, which we keep getting more and more amazing people added to it. Morley just joined the film, which was amazing.
Wow. I'm excited for what's coming, and I can feel that it's all going to be amazing. And all opportunities to lean in, step in, go and grow, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. Well, unless there's anything else, I have no more questions. What would you like to do from here? We are at 6:40.
But I'm actually close to my next meeting at 7, so I can hang out for and answer like a few questions, maybe 3, and then we'll call it so that I can get a little bit of rest in between.
Awesome. All right. So if somebody has questions, post it now and we see what we have. Because there's no way I'm going to have time to scroll through all of that. It's a lot of scrolling. So quick type. See
That's what I
your
love
question
about
is.
these groups though, is like that we get to hang out together, you know, like we're all in this Zoom room together. People get to rewatch it if they want to, but like being part of a community that is awesome like this, and that's eventually going to get invites to some pretty cool events that no one else knows about. You know, pretty cool stuff for sure.
This heartbeat community has been amazing. I'm so blessed to be a part of it. I mean, great people. All right. So what is current requirement to be alive? Did it change recently? I don't know what they're saying.
The requirement to be alive is just to show up every day, man. Like no matter what, just show up and do the best you can with what you're given. Right? Like it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to make it that you have to have X amount of successes every day and all this. Like just show up and do the best you can.
Love it.
It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And I promise you, you'll know what to do tomorrow. When you wake up tomorrow, that's the key, right? Like I let go of everything that I can, and I wake up and then I just see what the day has for me as best I can. I handle that and then I go to bed again. Because like there's no tomorrow guaranteed. There never has been. There's this belief that we will always have tomorrow, but I had to let that go because that was certainty. Oh, I'm certain I'm going to have tomorrow and I'll do it better tomorrow. Well, no, you might not. You might not get it. And that's not like grim or horrible. It's just reality. Like we're here until we're not. Our job is to do the best we can with what we have while we're here to help as many people as we can before we leave.
Oh, let's see. How many data points are we looking at right now?
A little under 3.6 million.
Yeah. See, I don't even look at those numbers anymore. I just, like you said, I'm just doing every second of every day.
Yeah, exactly. Like the 3.7 million is a big number because when we hit
Yep.
it, we stabilized the master lane, which I think is going to be probably the 21st of July, a little bit earlier maybe, but I think at the latest it's going to be the 21st of July because we'll have pushed through and we'll have finished the first cycle of cleaning. And then it'll be time, I think, to start stabilizing around there. Right now, it's all kinds of weird though, because like what happens when a master lane comes together is all of the potentials, all the parallels, everything that was gets woven into one thing. So in one reality, you're alive. In another reality, you're dead. And so what happens is people come back to life, so to speak, for a bit, but then the reality cleans itself up and then they die again. So that happens. Bank accounts change, websites change, ownerships of things happen. Different things happen with like whether the Titanic was raised or didn't raise, or whether the Atlantis existed or doesn't exist. Like it's so weird what happens every time that there's an integration into a timeline. There's new understanding of what reality is. And the past, just you just want to let it go as soon as you can, because the people you're playing with aren't the same people that you were playing with before the merge. But we're merged into a master line now, which means that we're done. There's no more merges. There's just stability from here, and then we elevate up into the higher games inside the master line. It's gonna be really cool.
Right.
I'm also about to post something for those of you. I know that you were always like, well, what are the levels like with the circuits and like all this other stuff? I'm gonna post that, but it's a lot of it's private information, so I can't tell you what the codexes are in those levels, but I can say level 1, this circuit from this circuit, level 2, this circuit from this circuit. So I am gonna do that because I think it's important for people to know when we transition topics, even if you don't know what that topic is.
Yeah, that I think that would be a great tool for everybody. That's going to be good. Is that going to be on Facebook or?
Yeah, I'll post it on Facebook.
Okay.
It'll get shared around, I'm sure. And I'm
I'm
sure
so-
somebody will make an infographic because
I'm
that's what
telling you, there's some
do.
people, our marketing people. Oh my God, they're badass. They're
They are. Yeah.
really, really
Especially
good.
now with Void Studios coming into support, we're cranking now. Things are gonna
Yeah,
get really awesome.
it's impressive.
I'm
Seriously.
looking forward to Void Space Ninja videos. The animated cartoon that we're working on is gonna be freaking amazing.
Awesome. I'm liking that. All right. Let's see. Data points. No, we did that. What can you share about dark forces contracts regarding eating flesh? Is that meat, I'm assuming?
That's probably cannibalism. So we're gonna go with that the dark forces, as we understand them, were interdimensional beings that were puppeting in human form, and that process has begun to fall apart. The leadership and then even the group that was directly below the leadership has already vacated or has switched sides. The whole world as we know it is just pawns at this point playing out systems. And it's kind of like my best example to describe this time right now is after a war in a country, there's this thing where they can't find all the landmines. So they just mark a field and they say landmines here. And like for the like 40 years into the future, there are still landmines that could blow up in that area, right? Earth has to clean up those landmines now. But the people placing the landmines are gone. So there are still things that are going to be running, cells that have been given orders that didn't get them unissued, right? Things like we went through what is called a dark phase. And in a dark phase, issues of orders are no longer given. They go dark, and then they just complete what they're set to do. So there are a few of those that are still remaining, but for the most part, many things have been cleaned up, and we're headed in a direction that you guys are going to love. But there will still be landmines that explode from time to time that are pretty critical things, and then there are groups that are still with marching orders that are behind the scenes that it's just going to take time. But I think in the next 5 years, roughly, most of that will be completely gone, if not all of it. From what I understand, 2025 is the year that things really critically change. 2023 was when technology would be introduced. 2024 is the big cleanup effort, and 2025 is when the average person starts to rebuild, and then 2028 is when the first understanding of heaven has been stabilized in the world. And that's like at a mass level. So everyone in the world understands that we've achieved that space. And then it's just a process of expanding that throughout the globe, which by about 2036, it should be worldwide. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Well, it took a lot to get us here, right? So it's going to take some time to clean it up.
200 years. Yeah. To get us to the planet that we currently have that's unrecognizable by anyone that understands truth, 200 years.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing to me that it took that long for them to dismantle everything, but it's also a good sign that things that got built before were pretty amazing. If it took 200 years to dismantle it.
Oy. All right.
I think
So
it's going to
we're
take
talking.
about roughly 13 14 years to rebuild everything in like the light of God, so to speak. So I have a lot of hope for the future. I don't like the connections, the people, the things I'm meeting, governments that are working with me. Like, I don't think that would happen if we were headed to a nuclear apocalypse and an ending, kind of a world ending kind of thing, like everybody thinks.
All right. Well, and I love that conversation because I wanted to ask that question. And they were talking about eating meat products.
Oh, I love eating meat. It's one of my favorite things because I sacrifice the animal and help it to transition into its next life. So we are here to be stewards of the earth, which means that we are to respect the earth and all the things inside of the earth. It's one of the reasons why people get more offended when animals are hurt than when people are hurt, which is really interesting, but it's also true because people hurting people was kind of part of the process of the lower games, but people hurting animals was never part of that process. So there are things, like if I'm going to eat meat, I do sacrifice it, which is important to me because I'm helping it to transition into the next thing. Somebody already killed it. There's nothing I can do other than to help it be made sacred. So for me, that's what I do. I actually think that meat's fine, but this is one of those things where people, they create all these stories around it, and I'm fine with that. Like, if it's good for you to eat meat, then eat meat. If it's not good for you to eat meat, then don't eat meat. Live your life as best you can, man. That's all there is. So
I'm
if
fine.
it's in front of you to do that and it's good for your body and your frequency, go for it. If it's not good for your body and frequency, figure out what is.
That's why I like watching children, because the young ones coming in, some of them need meat, some of them need fruit, some of them need like fruits and vegetables, and some of them need meat and vegetables. And when you watch them eat, they're eating according to what they need on all levels. They know. And so it's instead of how I grew up, which is you're going to eat this, and this, whether you like it or not, or want it or not, or need
Oh
it or
yeah.
not. So for me, it's if you watch these kids, they know what they're drawn to without being told. So I think it's changing where we're learning to do us, right, and not the beliefs that we've been told. Because I personally can show you stuff on both sides. You're killing if you're a vegetarian because of all the crickets and the frogs and all the other stuff that's underneath that you're killing. If everybody in the world went vegetarian, the planet would die.
Yep.
It's a really interesting thing. So I love the fact that we're now all stepping into our own power in our own bodies. And the bed helps with that big time because it helps you to communicate with who you really are and what your body, your physical body and frequency body needs.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool that we are coming into sovereign space, as I call it, like where we're starting to make real decisions as us instead of decisions based on all the science that we've been lied to about. Because like they even proved, like in my lifetime, the periodic table of food got flipped upside down because they realized they had it backwards. Saturated fat actually turns out it's not bad for you in the same way that we thought it was. That it was actually, I think it was Coca-Cola that paid them to write like a hit piece on it back in the day, and then nobody ever verified the research.
Right.
So, it's just like what we're taught is true is almost always never true. And so when people go back in time and they vet the research, it's just interesting. Like when you go back and you look at like sexuality, this is one of my favorite ones as a construct, is like the majority of the research based on sexuality that we understand came from Kensley. Well, Kensley worked with prison people and rapists and all kinds of other things to generate that research because at the time they weren't able to access stable spaces. So all this research is done based on degenerate understanding mostly. And when you try to apply that to the average person who doesn't have those same kind of tendencies, it becomes normalized as this is the right thing, but it's not the right thing. And so we do the same thing with our food. We do the same thing with like so many things. We delegate our power and authority to other people to decide for us because we're afraid to make the wrong decision. But the truth is, if you make the wrong decision, you can learn from it. If somebody else gives you the wrong answer, you don't learn from that because you're following them, not you. So just remember that this next phase is discovery. Like the transmissions for next year are the transmissions of discovery, which I'm really looking forward to because this is going to be super fun. but this process of realizing like that we're now in discovery, we're now in the mystery, we're actually starting to have an opportunity to know who we really are. That's what heaven is, in my opinion. So welcome to heaven, everyone. You guys earned it. Now enjoy the ride.
Woohoo. All right, we're at 6:53.
Yep, I'm gonna let you guys go so I can get ready for my next thing. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here. As always, it is a pleasure. I look forward to our next one. And like I said, I'm working on having a few guest speakers, which I'm really excited to have conversations with.
2 o'clock Friday. If you feel like it and you have time, come on in.
Absolutely. I'll see if it works out for me. All right. Love you guys.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Love you. Bye-bye.